All right, we're going to be in James today. So get out your Bibles. We're going to be in James chapter 1, verse 27. James 1:27. So as you guys flip to that, I want everybody, I always encourage everybody to have open minds and open hearts as I'm up here preaching, because as many of you know, sometimes my sermons tend to step on some toes. But that's what this is all about. I'm not up here to sugarcoat things. I'm here to tell you the truth of God's Word, and sometimes that stings a little bit. So prepare yourself. So everybody should have their Bible out. James chapter 1, verse 27. We'll go right into it. Just like we always do, we'll go through the verse, and then we will break it down. So verse 27 says, "Religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this: to visit orphans and widows in their affliction, and to keep oneself unstained from the world." So let's break this down. Religion, what it's talking about here. If we think normally of religion, we may think of different kinds of buildings, different types of religions, and what have you. But what this is actually talking about, it's not about a church or a building, a structure, anything like that. Actually, what it's talking about is how we express or portray or show outwardly to others about our religion. It's how we show that, how we express it is what it's talking about. Our religion that is pure and undefiled. And that leads us into the pure and undefiled part. It's kind of interesting that it mentions pure and undefiled, because that tells us that there are other ways that are not pure that we could be showing others about our religion. So when we think about it, we need to have this pure and undefiled means of portraying our religion to others, as opposed to the impure or defiled version of it. So that's pretty self-explanatory when it comes to that. I think we could probably break into a lot more of what is pure and what is undefiled, but I hope everybody has a decent grasp on that. And if really, I just go with the old adage that if it doesn't feel right, if what you're doing, it's probably not right. If you have to question it and say, should I be doing this? You probably shouldn't be doing it. So I think that's just pretty much self-explanatory. The biggest portion of this I want to get to is, of course, before God the Father is this: to visit the orphans and widows. So what does visit mean? We may think that it means just to stop by when we visit somebody in their house, visit our family members. But throughout Scripture, I believe it's like 11 times it mentions it in the New Testament, the word visit. But if you look into some of these verses, it's not just talking about stopping in, saying hello, how you doing, do you need anything, what have you. It's actually, it's talking about care or help when you visit someone. It's pretty interesting and kind of deep, this word visit. It's to come into someone's life and to guide them away from what's hindering them. So that leads us into the orphans and widows portion. So we want to visit orphans and widows. The orphans and widows, when this was written, they were the most vulnerable people in this time. And now I believe that they are vulnerable. I think you could probably maybe put it on a scale of that orphans are maybe a little bit more vulnerable than widows are, but they have their same amounts. We're just talking about people that are vulnerable in general. But back in the day, if James were to come to a congregation and say, listen, we need to visit with these orphans and widows, one guy said you would have probably heard a gasp go over the crowd, because they were just those that you stayed away from. They were a burden, and it was seen back then to visit or to care for people like that in those days was just something that didn't happen. So they were the most vulnerable, and by no means is this an exhausted list of people. I'm not just throwing orphans and widows here. That's not what they were doing. And some people may think, well, there are others out there who are vulnerable as well. We have, those who are drug users, alcoholics, sex workers, people that are into sex trafficking, pornography, all of these people who are vulnerable. And this is one of the reasons that we're called to visit, orphans and widows, is because we need to be proactive as opposed to reactive. And what I put down here is, you can, I've talked about this before with, giving your money to those who are in need, maybe on a street corner asking. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that at all. Do what God pulls your heart to do. But instead of, I guess, why don't we be more proactive? Because what do you think that these orphans, and I'm going to really focus on the orphans part as opposed to the widow part, but where do you think these broken people in the world come from? They come from some broken people as they're younger. We're all broken people, but when these children are pulled from their homes, they become very, very broken individuals, and that leads them down this track or this road of becoming more susceptible to substance abuse. Or becoming, someone who is exploited for sexual purposes. So we need to think about that, and we definitely need to become more proactive as opposed to reactive. So that was the title of this message, is that there is a solution to this. This is not a problem that cannot be solved. So these people would have more likely been written off. And people would have been trying to avoid them, and that's not what we want to do. So, leading us on to the next portion of this is unstained from the world. And what is the best way to do this? So, some may think that it's staying away from people like this, the orphans and widows, but Christ tells us no, that is not what we need to do. We need to go to those that need us and show them what what Christ is all about. Keeping your head in the sand and pretending that those who are in need of assistance don't exist is not keeping yourself unstained. Many people want to guard themselves and protect themselves. That's what the world tells us that we need to do. If there's something bad or what the world considers bad, keep yourself from it. Stick your head in the sand, act like it doesn't exist, but that's not what we need to do. As a matter of fact, I would say that steering clear of those who need you most is completely covering yourself in the most, probably the most filthy blemishes that you could imagine, I would say, is keeping away from folks like that. So that is our verse. I'm not going to bore you guys with a bunch of stats, but I did want to mention some of them. As you can tell, I'm really going to emphasize the orphans in the situation, or sometimes it's in some forms of it, it's called the fatherless. So we have a lot of kids that are in the foster system right now. We have a lot of kids that have been displaced from their families, and we're coming into the Christmas season. And I think that should really hit a lot of you in the heart, knowing that there are kids out there that are not going to have a Christmas that is like it should be, that they're not going to see the love that can be provided to them by a good, stable family. So across the state, these are the numbers from the website, that across the state of West Virginia, we have 6,237 children in the foster care system. And under 1 year old, 13.37% are under a year old. So that means that you have infant babies that are out there, over 13% that are in the foster care system. 1 to 4 years old is 16%, 5 to 8 years old, 17.97%, 9 to 12 is 16.61%. And then the biggest percentage here is 13 to 17 year olds. 13 to 17 year olds. These are the ones that I think most everybody wants to everybody wants to look at them as if they don't exist because they're the most problematic. They're the ones that have an attitude, or they have this, they have that. Everybody wants the baby. Everybody wants the little child that they can hold and everything, and they're cute and cuddly and what have you, or the toddler. So this is, I think, the reason that most of these kids are still out there. But it's 31.20%. So 31% of these kids. And then you have the 18 and older. 18 and older are almost 5%. And these are the ones we need to worry about as well, the ones that are going to age out of the program, of having the ability to have assistance. Now, that's just in West Virginia. If we come into Wood County, which is, of course, the county that we live in, I'm not sure if anybody's outside of the county, but I just went ahead and did Wood County because that's where we're at. This is not an unsolvable problem. And when I say problem, I'm not talking about the children. I'm talking about the problem of them being misplaced. The number that I have here off the state's website is 308. It may be different than that. I'm not sure, but roughly 308. That's it. It's still too much. One is too much, but 308. Is that really that big of a number? 308? Think about how many churches we have in this county. Think about how many people that we have in each of those churches. And that we can't make a difference possibly in this 308. What brought this to my attention was there was a little town in Texas called Possum Trot. A very small church, actually, and they had completely eliminated their foster agency. They completely eliminated it, and were actually seeking outside of their area of kids to foster. And a group of, I think it was 22 families within this church ended up eliminating everybody that was in the foster care system at that time, and a lot of them went on to be adopted. So it was very interesting to hear that story, and they had actually, they're starting to make a movie about it, which I plan on watching. It sounds like it's very, very interesting. But just what the church can do, I think we're not doing enough. We're not doing enough. The Wood County numbers right here locally under 1 year old are 15.5%. Under a year old. 1 to 4 year old is almost 13%. 5 to 8 year old, almost 18%. 9 to 12 is almost 17%. And then, of course, you have that large number again from 13 to 17 year olds, 34%. So that are being misplaced during their life. And what I want to get on that is that we are a generation, we're a generation that has the most, but we sacrifice the least. That was a statement made by a fellow I was watching. He's not a pastor, but he's more of a motivational speaker. And he made that statement, and I thought that is so true, that we are a generation that has the most, but sacrifices the least. And I thought about my own life of when I think, well, I sacrifice a lot. But really, do we? I think we need to really, really think about what we do sacrifice. Because that is a fear that we have, that we're waiting for the right time. We're waiting for, if you're waiting for that right time, it's never going to come. It's never going to come. It'll never be the right time. So if you're throwing things out like money or a house, time, a vehicle, your work, a family as an excuse, to get all of that stuff in line is never going to happen. That was something that me and Melissa we had talked about for quite some time before we had children together, or even before we started fostering ourselves. Is in a different season, of our life. Maybe next, maybe when I retire, maybe when all of these things, and then. Believe it or not, I got a phone call from her and said, "Why not now? Why not now?" I was like, "Let's do it." I was all in. And instead of waiting for that right time, which is never going to come, you're never going to be in the right financial state. It's never going to happen. You're always going to be in that position to where you're not going to have enough money. You might be living check to check, whatever it may be. Your house may not be big enough in in what you're thinking, because you want them to have their own room, or it's just, they're all excuses at the end of the day. All excuses. Time, your vehicles, work, family. And when I say family, it may be because you have a bigger family. Maybe you have a small family. Maybe your family doesn't agree with, taking on that extra responsibility. There are people out there that just don't think that that's a good idea. Maybe you should. Maybe they're thinking you should get your life in order before you go bringing on other children in your life. But we need to start thinking about the foster children. I mentioned it earlier, that are aging out of the system. Those are too old, and they're left with little to no assistance. So they're ones that are more susceptible to turning to drugs and alcohol. That's where I get back to that proactive part that we see, people. And I personally know a lot of these people that I've talked to. I've interviewed them throughout my job, and one of the main things that they all have in common is the fact that they were placed in the foster system. They had a family that was in and out of jail or prison, had addictions themselves, and the children were pulled from the house. These people were pulled from their house at a young age, and it started them on this path. And I'm not saying that was everything as the reason that they were there, but I guarantee you it was a huge percentage of why they were in the position that they were. So, who deals with this issue now? Who deals with this issue now of children that are misplaced? Who do we seek that takes care of these problems? The answer to that is government. We have started looking into the government to take care of this problem, and that started happening from my research probably about maybe the 60s that it started taking over. My next question is, who should be dealing with this problem right now? And the answer is the church. The church used to be who took care of this problem, who took care of the orphans and widows, and we've got away from that. We've started relying on the government to take care of this problem, and really it's ours. We're called to, just in that verse, we're called to visit the orphans and widows. That means take care of them. Take care of them. And it's ridiculous, honest, that I even have to be up here saying this, honestly, this message that, does it even really need to be preached? It shouldn't. It shouldn't need to be preached, but it does. I wish it didn't. I wish I didn't have to get up here and say these things, because these people are human beings. The world's most precious resource. The world's most precious resource. That's what children are. And we're just closing our eyes and our hearts and saying, someone else will do it. Someone else will take on that burden. Someone else will change their lives. Someone else will save them. And we need to stop saying those things. You need to be that someone else. Now, these children in the foster system, they have it rough. They really do. Over a third of the children in foster care, they see 2 placements within a year. 2 placements. Moving all of their possessions sometimes in garbage bags, depending on the location. We were grateful enough to, our children that we got ended up coming because somebody had apparently donated some suitcases. But I have personally had to stand in a house with a child who I was removing from that house, and that's all they had was garbage bags. I don't carry around in my police car a suitcase or anything like that for them to put their possessions in. You're talking about a filthy house that, this little girl, I had to explain to her, like, you're going to go somewhere, and I wasn't even sure where that spot was at the time. And I'm explaining to her that you need to gather everything that you need to survive. Essentially, you need some clothes, whatever you need for school the next day, and we're going to need to put it in this garbage bag so that you can take it to this unknown spot that I don't know exactly where you're going. Of course, this little girl, I think she was probably 7 or 8 years old, had a lot of questions. And unfortunately, I didn't have a lot of answers for her. I didn't have a lot of answers. I knew she would be safe somewhere, yes, but how do you describe that? How do you explain that to a 7 or 8 year old child who is literally being ripped from the only thing that they know? And they might end up spending that night at DHHR in an office, waiting on somebody to pick up the phone and say, yeah, I'll take that child. They might be spending a long period of time in a hotel, which, to some of us, it's like, wow, that would be great, spending some time in a hotel. Nice little, no, it's not. It's not for a child that's 7 or 8 years old, not knowing, when is my next meal? Am I going to be able to eat? Am I ever going to see my brother and sister? Am I ever going to see my mom or my dad again? These are worries that these kids have that's going on in their minds. They're probably not even really worried about their clothes that are in the trash bags. That's a lifestyle that they're probably used to. Just trying to find clean clothes to put in that garbage bag for those kids was hard to do. Just the uncertainty that child had, and this is multiple times that I've done this. That's the one time that really sticks out in my mind as I was writing this, of that little girl, just the uncertainty of just not knowing what, where, when, all of these questions. But if I had the ability to tell her, like, listen, I know a family. They're going to pick up their phone, and they're going to be more than willing to take you in tonight, and you'll have a warm house to stay in with clean blankets and clean clothes, and you're going to have food. If I had the ability to tell her that night, I would, but I couldn't tell her that because I was not going to lie to her, because I didn't know if that was actually going to happen that night. I knew eventually somebody would pick up the phone and someone would take her in, but I didn't know who. I didn't know when. I didn't know how that was going to happen. So I just told you guys that children in foster care have it rough. This is something that's not going to be comfortable. If you would decide to take on something like this, it's not going to be comfortable. I'm here to tell you it's not comfortable at all. There are challenges to it. It's going to be a challenge. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and tell you that it's going to be sunshine and rainbows every day, because you're going to have children that are broken. You're going to have children that are broken from the inside. Some things you're not even going to be able to see on the outside. Sometimes you may see it on the outside as far as physical abuse, but the emotional toll that these kids have taken on, they're going to need help finding themselves again, figuring out who they are. And like I said, the uncertainty of where they're going to lay their head and where they're going to eat, if they're going to have anything to eat, whether they're going to see their loved ones again, their brothers and sisters. These are things that are going to weigh on their minds. Now, the next thing you may be saying is, Dan, I'm just not cut out for this. I'm not cut out for something like this. And you're right, you may not be. You may not be cut out for being a foster parent or taking on, an adoptive role. That just may not be you. But that doesn't mean that you can just lie down and stick your head in the sand. You have to do your part. I'm looking around now and I can already see multiple, including myself, multiple families that are foster families. We actually have a very, very large amount of foster families within our church. It's amazing. And the stories that we can tell. We have people who work within the foster care system, from Blueprints, and there are other programs out there as well, just right here within our church. But the things I'm talking about that can be provided and helped out, you may not be the one that needs to pick up the phone at 3 a.m. and say, yeah, I'll take that child in tonight, whether it's one night, a month, a week, a year, for their life. You may not be that person. You may be, too old. You may just, again, not have things in line, and be that type of person that could do that. But you could provide meals. You could provide meals for families. You could provide childcare. I'll tell you right now, me and Melissa would love a night out once in a while. I'm sure there's some other foster care families that would love that as well. Childcare Providing transportation for kids to different functions. Any service, honestly. Washing clothes, cleaning up a house, picking up groceries, providing clothes. If you have clothes from where your kids grew up and they're out of them, instead of selling them somewhere, or check with other people and see if they need those. Because I tell you, we could not have gotten through our life without the hand-me-downs. We really couldn't. We could not get through our lives with, I have 7 children, 2 of them being foster kids. And the hand-me-downs that we've got from people have saved so much money. I know those of you who have kids know how expensive clothes and shoes and stuff like that are. It's outrageous. So having that community that is able to hand things down has really, been extremely beneficial to us as a family. Helped us out tremendously. Paying bills, something as simple as just prayer. It seems so simple, but we need to be praying for the foster families out here. We need to be praying for those who are on the fence of, do I do this? Can I, in my heart, take on this child with the possibility that I may have to give them back? Another thing I want to talk about here is moms on the fence of abortion. We could be reducing abortion. We could be reducing abortion by showing a mother who is on the fence about having an abortion that there is someone who will take care of your baby. There is someone out there that will take care of your baby. You don't have to worry about there being someone to take care of this precious child. See, we need to be a church. We need to be a community of churches that show mothers who are struggling with the thought of, how am I going to take care of this baby? That there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people who are willing to take this on. A Christian community that is willing to step up and lay down their time, their talents, their treasures to provide for another. So when you're struggling with your time that you'll be losing, think of those who have less than you. Not about what you don't have. Think about those who have less than you. And when you're struggling with your heart saying, again, what if I have to give them back? What if I have to give them back? What if the courts say that I have to give them back? Think about the seed that you could plant in that child that could change them for life. You could show them Christ. You could show them Jesus in that day, in that week, in that month, in that year. You could be sharing with them Jesus Christ, and that may be the one thing in their life that brings them to Christ. Is you taking them in and showing them a loving home, and showing them that there is someone out there that loves you. There's someone out there that loves them more than you love them. And that's Jesus. So when you're struggling with your selfishness, how selfish we can be to even think about our time that we're going to be losing. I want you to remember what Christ did for you on the cross when he didn't have to. Remember that this is an example that we are called to show to others in this fallen world. Remember that we were orphans in need of a father. And there was one who came down from his throne and took us in his arms and told us that this is going to be a struggle. You're going to have to take up your cross. It's going to be a struggle. but that I'm going to be here with you every step of the way. I'm going to be here when you fall. And I'm going to be here when you feel like you can't take another step. I'm going to be here when you laugh and when you cry. And even when you take your last breath. I'm going to be here. Because I love you. This is what we need to be showing these children who are lost in this world. These children who are scared and unsure about everything in their lives. They need to know that someone loves them and will lay down their life for them. They need to know that there is someone in this world who will not choose an addiction over them. They need to know that there's someone in this world who will not choose a boyfriend over them, a girlfriend over them. They won't choose money over them. They won't choose fun, friends, time, pleasure, sin over them. We need to be those people in this world, church. You're not just here to be redeemed. I'm going to say that again. You are not just here to be redeemed. You're here to show the world Christ Jesus, our Savior. And I can't think of a better way to do that than when that phone rings in the middle of the night and you say, yes, I will take that child in. Even if it's going to break my heart and I end up having to give them back, even if it's going to be a struggle and I have to keep them for months, years, maybe their whole life, and I'm not going to be able to do the regular things that I do. I'm not going to be able to go play poker with the buddies. I'm not going to be able to go, spend the kind of money eating out like I normally would. These are sacrifices. I hesitate to even call them sacrifices because honestly, they're just pleasures that we have in our daily lives. That's exactly what it is. It's like the extra. It's the icing on the cake, okay? And there are things that, yes, we do, we struggle to give up. But we are a society, a country that has way more than what we need. And we waste so much. Think about how much time we waste on frivolous stuff that we could be devoting to children that need to see that love, that need to see what Christ did for us. Now, again, there are people out here that are not specifically called to do exactly that. I'm not saying you have to go out and foster a bunch of kids or adopt a bunch of kids. But what I am saying is you do need to help. There are ways to help. So many ways. And if you have questions about how you can help, I went over a few of them here, but I'm telling you right now, I can give you so many families. I have so many resources in this audience that can let you know exactly what you need to do. I just felt called to share this message during the holiday season. And it's something I became very, very passionate about. My father was in the foster system, and he told me that he would not be the person that he was if it wasn't for his foster families. And that meant a lot to me. I didn't really know my grandparents very well. He told me a lot about them. A lot of it was very negative. But for him to say that it was his foster family that allowed him to be the person that he was, I thought that's exactly what I need to do. I need to take care of, these children that need us. And when the time came for that season that we were looking for, I'm so glad that Melissa called me and said, why not now? I wouldn't change it for anything, the two that we have. And I know there are others out there right now that wouldn't change anything. That there are times when you go to these meetings, these court hearings, and you're just thinking, what if they get taken from me? But I'm here to tell you that God is good. And even if it's a small period of time that you keep this child in your life, you have made a difference. I want you to think about the self-sacrifice that Christ did for us on the cross, and he didn't have to. And I want you to think about sacrificing some of your time and your talents and your treasures to help those that are in need. Like I said, it's fine to help people on the street corner. It's fine to help others that are in need, grown adults. But these children, the fatherless, the motherless, they're innocent. And as a church, we need to come together to support them. Not relying on the government. Not relying on I'm sorry, but we need to shut that down. That there shouldn't even be foster agencies, or not foster agencies, but just they shouldn't have to call multiple people. They should just be able to say, I know so and so. They're gonna answer the phone. They're gonna just pick it up immediately. We should have no kids sitting in hotel rooms waiting. We should have no kids sitting down at the DHHR building overnight. That should not be happening. I'll get off my soapbox here. I pray that during this holiday season, you guys really, really think about those out there in need. For any of you that have questions about this, we'll call her out, Melinda. You're a great resource. Talk to Melinda. Talk to me. I'll get you hooked up with somebody. We have at least, I don't know, probably almost into the double digits of foster families here within our church, those who have been involved. I forgot to mention her. I was hoping she would be here today, but we had someone that went to our church, or goes to our church. Her name is Gail, and I was amazed that she mentioned the number, and I forget what the time period is of the children that she has fostered, whether it be respite of an overnight visit or for a longer period of time. The number, I'm probably going to screw it up here, but it was like 370 kids. 370 kids that Gail had taken in. And like I said, that might be one night or it might be for long periods of time. And she's adopted some of these kids. And she did mention that, one of the hardest things is giving them back. 370 kids, and I think she has 3 or 4 that are hers adopted now. So think of how many kids she's had to give back. Think of how hard that is, for her. But just that little bit, and I'm telling you, that little bit of light that these kids saw, that somebody in this world loves them. Just that ability for them to have the clean sheets, the clean clothes, the warm meal. Somebody just ask them how they're doing. How you doing today? Somebody to give them a haircut, a bath. I just call you guys out to be that person if you feel that you are.